Hey guys, this is Comic Uno, and today I am doing Comic Uno's Best Comics of the Week. So before I get started into doing this show, I will mention the last time for the review that my Kickstarter is going on for Like Father, Like Daughter. There is literally 28 hours left. I'd really appreciate it if you guys can support the Kickstarter, even at $1. It really helps, and I give you 8 free digital comic books, even if you just support for $1. Actually, 11 at this point with the stretch goals opened up for the campaign. So what is it about? It's about a high school girl. Father left her to become a full-time superhero. Everyone in the world loves him except for her, and then she inherits his abilities. And in our last issue, we actually revealed that Casey, our main character's mother, works for the KGB, so she was the villain the whole entire time, and issue 6 really delves into that. So hopefully you guys can go support. Again, you only have a day left to support. It ends at Thursday, or on Thursday at 8:30. Now moving into the review, I will say that next week does not seem like there's going to be a lot of comics. I'm getting like 3 books next week, so next week's going to be a super short show. But let's get into this week's books, which I had 10, so that's like a pretty good amount. And number 10 for me is Empyre Avengers issue 0. So I'll have to say I wasn't really looking forward to this event. I'm not a big Cosmic Marvel fan. I do like Teddy. I like his character, which is the only reason I'm like, okay, let me give this a shot. And I'm currently reading Fantastic Four, so I probably will give Fantastic Four issue 0 a shot as well. I don't know if I'm going to drop it here, but I really didn't quite love the Avengers issue. I just felt like it's just like every other event, and it's weird because we do get to see another planet like doing this garden stuff and, you know, obviously trying to take over, and there's a war, and I feel like that's what we're getting with X-Men, except with characters we care about, and it's really, you know, deep and very intense, I would say. So we already have that with the X-Men. I don't know if we need another storyline with that, with characters we care about less. So for me, I gave Empyre issue 0 2 stars. I just wasn't quite invested in the story. Artwork was pretty good, but there wasn't anything that really latched me onto this one. Moving on to number 9. So number 9 for me is Batgirl issue 46. Batgirl, it's been kind of a miss for me lately, and I really did not like this arc. I was not a fan of the artwork for this story. It's very yellow. The colors, it just very bright, and it was very hard to see everything. It felt very muddy in the artwork. The whites and yellows didn't really fit for me. I just didn't really love the line work at all for this issue. It just wasn't my thing. And then the story just kind of bored me. It was very dialogue heavy, and I just couldn't quite get into the battle. I liked the issue a little bit more towards the back end, which is why this wasn't my least favorite of the week, but it didn't really give me enough to say, oh my god, this issue was great. I was interested in the Joker cliffhanger, so the Joker is waiting for Batgirl. I've definitely been interested in this tie-in for Joker War, and I somewhat like the Bard stuff. I don't really quite love the relationship, but I think it's the most human aspect of this book right now, the most character development we've gotten from this book, because right now it's been kind of lackluster. At least there's some relationship being explored here. You know, even though it's a romantic relationship, I just mean any relationship in the book. There hasn't been a lot of interactions in this book, so it's nice to at least have Barbara talk to somebody in this issue and in this arc. But yeah, I hope it ends up picking up after Joker War, because this arc was really fillerish, and it's not loving the direction. I don't even know if there is a direction for Batgirl right now. So I'm going to give that 2 stars, and that is number 9. Moving on to number 8. So number 8 for me, this is a little lower than usual, and that is Angel and Spike issue 11. So Angel and Spike, this arc kind of lost me, and maybe it's because of the hiatus, so it's been a while since I've read the last issue, but they're delving into a bit more of the darker side of Angel, of Lilith trying to control Fred, has controlled some of Angel's loved ones in the past, and I just felt like there was a lot thrown at us plot-wise, but I didn't really get the character development and interactions as much here. I think they tried with the Angel connection with his past I don't think it was a lover, but I guess past friend, and they try to connect it to the present day. I thought that was interesting. I do really like the artwork for this book, but this wasn't as strong as the previous issues. Also, this book's called Angel and Spike is hardly in this comic. I don't really quite understand why they changed the title. It still feels like an Angel book. So Angel and Spike issue 11 gets 2.5 stars, and that is number 8. Let me get my iPad for some of these other issues coming up. Let's see. We're up to number 7. And number 7 for me is the Immortal Hulk, issue 34. I was a little torn on this issue because it's kind of what you expect. So the last issue you get a cliffhanger with the leader, and you're like, okay, I want an issue about the leader now, which is what you get. But it's very exposition-y about, well, who is the leader, and a bit more of his journey of how he got to the place at the end of the issue. And I did think it was interesting to get into the head of someone who controls people's minds and controls people. I thought was definitely an interesting concept. I just don't know if I really liked the execution for it. It wasn't really for me. I didn't quite get grabbed into the story for this one. I did like the rustic artwork. I think fit really well. Of course, I miss Joe Bennett's artwork, but for this issue in particular. But if you're going to have a guest artist, I think this was definitely a good fit for the issue. But yeah, not huge leader fan, so I don't know if this really attached me. But if you like the leader and you wanted some insight on the character, I think you'll like this one. But it didn't quite do it for me, so I'm going to give that one 2.5 stars. Moving on to number 6. Number 6, this is the last issue of this book. I actually got the coronavirus version of this too, and that is the 5 years issue 10. So they have like a coronavirus edition where everyone's wearing a mask. I have that downstairs, so can't show it here. But I got that actually a couple of weeks ago. And yes, I know the releases for this is a little confusing. This book did come out a couple of weeks ago, technically through the company store, but I've been getting stuff through Diamond and getting stuff through the comic book store. So in the comic book store, it was released this week, which is why I'm reviewing it this week. But yeah, 5 years kind of goes out with a whimper in some ways, because I just feel like it was building up this epic, the world's gonna end, and then you just fight this spy, or I guess we'll call her a spy, and that's the end of the story. I'm like, okay. I thought it was gonna be kind of bigger than that, especially because we've had stories where the world's gonna end in this book with Echo, and I thought it was gonna be a little bit more in that vein. But I felt like this ended a little bit too soon. I felt like the book was just getting started, and we didn't get a lot of interactions between the different franchises. I just felt like it was a little slow as we got to the end. I do think some of the interactions here were fun. Like we get to see Rachel heal from her rope burns and not have the bloodshot eyes anymore. But I'm also curious where the Terry Moore universe is going to go. They don't really leave us with, okay, there's another Strangers in Paradise. Okay, we have another series. We're just kind of left off with, okay, it's over. And again, it was a very simple ending. It didn't wow me. So we'll see where this one goes, hopefully, where all these franchises go, and we get an announcement soon. So Terry Moore, 5 years, issue 10, gets 3 stars, and that is number 6. Moving on to number 5, and that is Rescue 2020, issue 2, which I'm actually surprised this is a physical book, because most of these miniseries have been turned to digital books. So yeah, I was kind of surprised by that, but nice to finish in my collection. Rescue, this was a fun issue. You know, if you enjoy Pepper Potts, I enjoy her character. It's a very one-off story of Pepper Potts going into Hydra, trying to get DNA of, I think, Tony's father, and trying to get away so they could try to rescue Tony. And there's some good character interactions, a newer character that's introduced, a new Hydra agent, and Pepper is able to technically team up with him. So artwork is kind of plain. The story is not blow your mind, but if you like the character, and obviously we don't get to see this character that often, I think you'll like this issue. I think it was worth getting the 2 issues just to have these kind of side fun adventures. But yeah, artwork is a little plain for this one. I'm going to give Rescue 2020 issue 2 3 stars. That is number 5. Moving on to number 4. I was really surprised by this one because I'm a little worn out with these 100-page specials, but I really enjoyed this one, and that is Green Lantern 100-page special 80th anniversary. So yeah, we've gotten so many of these. We just got Catwoman, we just got Joker, obviously the ones that started it all, Superman, Batman, and I really enjoyed this because I felt like every story was really different, and that's something I didn't love about the other anthologies. I'm like, all right, here's another Batman story. Because there's different Green Lanterns and all the Green Lanterns are so different from each other. Every story just felt really nice and felt that it was celebrating a decade. And there were stories I felt even progressed some storylines. So one being Alan Scott, where we get to see them embrace the Earth 2 storyline. So now I'm curious, now that we're in DC Rebirth, if we ever see Alan Scott in the JSA again. Again, I'm not reading Justice League. I know they've showed up there. Maybe Alan Scott's more prominent here in that story. But from what I read, I don't know anything about Alan Scott in DC Rebirth. So it's kind of interesting that they're taking the Earth 2 version of Alan Scott and making that the modern Prime universe for DC Universe or DC Comics. I thought that was cool, and that's an Origins I enjoyed from Earth 2, and definitely one of the better parts of that series. So, and the artwork was superb for that book. And then right after that, there's a really great Hal Jordan story about Hal celebrating everyone he loves and having to say goodbye to people, and then he realizes he wasn't saying goodbye to anybody, and he's the fool of the story, and the Justice League all makes fun of him. So that was another really good story. And yeah, like I said, it really celebrated everybody. We even get to see a future storyline with just the core, the four original Green Lanterns, not really because Alan Scott was, but Hal, Kyle, John, and Guy, and they celebrate Guy's life because he died. And I thought that was really good. So there was just a lot of standout short stories that rarely happens with these anthologies. You kind of get tired and you're like, okay, I get it. Do I need 100 pages of this? But for this, you felt like you did, because again, there's so many Green Lanterns, and it wasn't just like, all right, here's 5 stories of Hal. Kind of like what they did with the Robin special, where it's like, all right, here's 5 stories about Dick Grayson. Here's one about Tim Drake and Stephanie. It was nice that Hal got really one story, and then Alan got one story, and Kyle got one story, Jessica got a story, and actually went in the order of the Chronicle of the Green Lanterns, and I think it celebrated different eras in that regard, but then you also got Green Lantern and Green Arrow stories. So, really was impressed with this one. There's some good covers as well. Overall, I'm going to give that a solid 4 stars. All right, moving on to number 3. This is a lot higher than it has been. I was pretty impressed with this issue, and that is Batman issue 93. You know, my last review, I said, you know, what's the hype about Punchline? I don't feel like she's proven herself yet. But this issue, she definitely starts to prove herself as the designer. Pretty much explains this, well, really, Batman explains the designer's plans to him and says, well, you're doing this, right? And then the designer tricks Batman and Harley and Catwoman, and we find out it actually wasn't the designer, and it was the Joker all along. And there's some really interesting story, I think, between Harley and Punchline, where Harley tries to, you know, tell her, hey, you're not, I was you once, and this is not good. You're not going down the right path. And then Punchline, I like, that kind of explains Harley is not a totally bad person. And you kind of get the anti-hero vibe from Harley. And then her throat is slashed. And you're like, oh my god, what happens to Harley? And then Batman's leg gets stabbed right in an artery that can kill him. And then Catwoman, I think she just goes unconscious, but she also doesn't get paid. So that was pretty bad for Catwoman. But overall, I really like the twists and turns. I actually enjoyed the exposition here, and I thought the pacing was really good between the Catwoman story, the Batman story, and the Harley story. Artwork, same artist, not my favorite, because like I said, I think from the last reviews, some of the characters look a little wrinkly to me, but overall, I actually thought it was a little better here, because you don't have, like, Riddler and Penguin in it too much, and they were the most wrinkly characters. But yeah, Batman issue 93, I'm going to give that 4 stars. I thought this was a really solid issue, and I hope it continues with this now that we're getting into Joker War, where now you understand why Joker War is happening, and I'm actually pretty pumped for it. Alright, moving on to number 2, which is the Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, and yes, it is a foil cover, which you probably can't see because of my ring light, but there kind of is. And this is issue 50 of Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, and I really enjoyed this issue. I thought it brought all the Rangers that have been, you know, building up in this story, the Omega Rangers and the new Power Rangers, the new Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, as they verse one of their own, which is Kaya. And I like the little character moments here. I enjoyed that we're going to see the new Rangers step up a bit. I like that the Omega Rangers are kind of doing their own thing and figuring out their own identity, which is a really good bookend, not for just this book, but for Go-Go as well, as friends learn how to to grow apart but still be friends and still, be able to work with each other. But the moments that really shined for me was actually Kaya and Trini. I love what Ryan's done with Trini in general, that we really get to see her in the forefront a lot and show her leadership skills, and she's the one who put down the bad guy. It wasn't Jason, it wasn't Tommy. But we get a pretty big cliffhanger where everyone's going and leaving. We got, first of all, Ranger Slayer. We're getting a one-shot with her, which I'm super excited for, to see how she deals with the aftermath of Shattered Grid in her own universe. And then we also get Lord Draken back, but he's not looking so good. And why is he back? What's going on? How is everyone going to react to this? And what does this mean for the future of these storylines? And what are the future of these storylines? I just thought it kind of had everything in this issue. You had good action. There's some great Zord fights. Got some good emotions. And then you got an epic cliffhanger. So overall, issue 50 definitely doesn't let you down by any means. It gets me super excited for this franchise. So I'm going to give that 4.5 stars. And that is number 2. Moving on to number 1. This one was just a really great character story, and that is Teen Titans issue 42. Love this cover too. So Teen Titans, they broke up once again. I think every arc, that's how it ends. It's just like, alright guys, we hate each other, goodbye. But I really like this issue because the breakup actually allows us to get deeper into the characters. Not that we hadn't already. I do think we know these characters pretty well, but we get to see dynamics we don't usually get to see. So it opens up with, Damian dealing with the death of Alfred, which I feel like, it not that it's been forgotten, but, Batman's dealing with the Joker War, so there hasn't been much about Alfred. So it was really nice to see how much of an influence he was for Damian, and Damian kind of being a bit more mature about his emotions. So I enjoyed that. And then we get the next scene with Roundhouse and Crush. And Crush comes over and he's like, why are you here? And he's like, you don't have any friends, do you? And he's like, I could be your friend. And I like those little small moments. And then we get to see Red Arrow really still dealing with her killing Deathstroke, and which I believe is not, I don't even think he's dead anymore, if I remember the Deathstroke solo series correctly. But I love the kind of guilt that everyone feels, and that's why this team is unique and different from other Teen Titans. Is yes, they're family and they're friends and they're growing up together, but what makes them, again, different from the other ones is that they all have this guilt, and that they're all anti-heroes. They're not all they're not all Superman. They're not all Batman who's always doing the right thing no matter what. They've made mistakes just like any teenager, and I think that's so relatable and makes this a more unique version of Teen Titans than maybe what we've had in different generations. So I love this team, and I think we really get into their head here. And again, I'm a little... I don't love that they keep breaking up. That's one thing. I'm like, oh my god, they're breaking up again. They're going to work together and everything's going to be fine. And those are little parts that didn't get me to the 5 stars. I think there was some repetitiveness there, but the character work is so good here. And I think the artwork really improved as well. Not improved. I just think it's a different style, and it fits this story very well. I really like the coloring for this book. There's also a new writer, Robbie Thompson, who's very good at character work that we've seen with his Marvel stuff. So really excited to see the future of Teen Titans. I just thought this was a really good first issue for this, I guess, new creative team, or maybe their guests. I guess there's new... I don't know if they're a new creative team or not, but... really enjoyed this one. I think they handled the breakup really well, and not in a dramatic way, and actually got everyone closer and allowed themselves to look inward a bit more as they kind of figure out their friendships, and we get to see new dynamics grow here. So yeah, Teen Titans issue 42 gets 4.5 stars, and that is my number 1 pick. Hopefully you guys enjoyed. This is Comic Uno. Definitely go follow me on Twitter and Facebook. Go check out my comics, like Father Like Daughter and They Call Her Dancer. Again, that Kickstarter has one more day. Hopefully you guys could go check it out. But if you're watching this later, I also have an Etsy store. That's in the description below, where you can get my Father Like Daughter's issues 1 through 5, the trade, and also the Dancer issue 1 through 2. So also... go check out our comic book podcast every Tuesday, which is at 10 p.m. Eastern Time, where we talk all things comics. Thanks, guys. Bye.